So I know my name's Liz Francis, and I'm the chair and president of the Community Market Cooperative in Southern Wake County. And so tonight we are going to have an open info session on running what's involved when you're in the board of directors. What does the board of directors do? As all of you know, we have two goals for this summer, one of which is to have 4 or more people run for the board. The other of which is to have 15 to 20 people join committees to assist with the activities of the board and the cooperative. Those two things we're hoping to have by August 15th. If we reach those two goals, we will go ahead and instate new board members and continue on our path to opening the Community Market Cooperative. If we do not meet those goals, we will have to decide that we are going to dissolve the cooperative. Hopefully, that will not be the case, but it may or it may not. We will see. And so this session is about the board, and it'll be recorded. So if anyone wants to watch it that is not able to join us, they'll be able to. So here we go. Again, I'm Liz Francis. I'm the president and chair of the Community Market Board of Directors. We have with us Joy Brown. She's our treasurer. Tammy Quick, one of the founding members. Crystal ICU. She's already been active in the board. And James, active in the co-op, and James also. Josie was a longtime board member, and now she helps us by being secretary. And Jan assists us on the board with finance. So what does the board do? We're going to start at the end. When everything's said and done, what the board does is it governs the cooperative. It governs the cooperative to make sure that they're financially able to sustain themselves. So the board will look at the P&L and say, is the general manager doing all the things that need to be done with staffing, cash flow, etc., to be able to keep the cooperative running, financially viable. That's once we have our cooperative open. We're not there yet. We're still in the startup phase. So we're a working board that what we're doing is trying to get the cooperative to open. And at the stage we're at, where we would typically be, is we'd be searching for a site and getting new members. This summer we're doing things a little differently because we have these two goals to determine what our fate is in August. So what our board does now is to try to decide, these are the goals of the board, and these are the committees, and these are the finances. And we make sure that we address those and get action items and give reports on those things at monthly board meetings. Basically, we would have a number of, every meeting starts with looking at the minutes from the last month's meeting, approve those, and the treasurer's report with our expenses and income. And also during the treasurer's report, we would discuss new membership. And then we would talk about various committees like outreach, what are the plans coming up for outreach, the web, what are we doing on the web, what's going on with communications. And then we would go through those standard committees. And then we would also look at the, in a closed session, if we were doing site considerations, are we looking at sites? Have we had any reports on what's going on? So that's what a typical board meeting looks like. Does anyone of my fellow board members have something to add about the board and what we do?
No, sounds good, Liz.
We do
obviously all the normal long range and short range planning, and we work with consultants. So we're not just pulling this stuff out of thin air. So that we have a plan in place and, reacting at various times to conditions and decisions and things and opportunities that come our way. So the normal stuff that you think a board would do, but as Liz says, we're more a working board. We are hands on. It's, I've been involved at state boards where you show up quarterly and someone else has done all the work and we're just voting on things that are brought before us by another body that's doing all the work, but we're the working board. Ideally, we would have those committees that she talked about, but other than that, that's it in a nutshell.
Another thing that the board does is educates itself. So one of our, just like the 7 co-op, we advocate for the member owners and for the board. And so that includes educating, having education for the board members so that they are able to do their best in functioning, both on how cooperatives work, how to read a P&L, what is governance, how does that relate to cooperatives. So that would be part of the thing that the board would make sure that their board members are educated so that they can do the things that need to be done to move forward. Anybody else have something? It's so funny, Crystal and James, we've probably, between this last week and this weekend, we probably spent an hour and a half talking about what the board does. And yet here I am barely, I'm at 11 minutes in. So does anyone, do you want to add anything? Any questions you'd like to ask? No. Okay.
Liz, why don't you, so let's assume we get enough applications, we have no new board members. So what will it look like that first board meeting after September or October? What will be the?
Okay. So we'll get on August 15th will be the deadline. We'll have the applications. That week, we have a board of directors meeting, and we'll review those applications to see which we will go ahead and put through. The next board meeting on September 16th, unless we decide to do it earlier, but I think it would be on September 16th, we would have an induction for the new board members. That would include making sure that some of the documents you have with your application, like any conflict of interest, those kind of things, we have all the documentation that we need. We would make sure that everybody had read the bylaws and make sure they understand the bylaws. And we would start, at that first meeting, that we would have the induction and you would be on the board and starting to participate. Is there anything I forgot, Ms. Tammy?
No, I mean, that's it. And then the planning begins and, what the next steps from there are, because we're kind of at a crossroads right now.
Oh, there we go. Oh, you got it, Joy?
Got it.
Hi, Eric Myers. Oh, you can't hear me yet. And that planning. Hi, Eric. This is Liz Francis. So glad that you could join us. We'll be planning on, let's say we have our 4 additional board members, at least 4 people have run for the board, and we have committee members. And then at that point, we'd have to decide, as part of the board, how are we going to proceed? Because then we would start probably looking towards member campaign, getting more members, and starting to focus on site, getting a site again. Those are the 2 main things we'll do when we're up and running. everything's better with more members. Members are like collateral to a lender or to other people interested in promoting the cooperative. So we always want to have as many people as possible. You're constantly getting new members. We would hope that by the time we would be looking at a site, getting close to a site, we'd have at least 1,000 members. Right now we have about 550. We'd have 1,000 members, and then once we announce the site, we'd hope that that would go up to probably almost 2,000 members. And what makes that important is when we go to try to get money and donations, the number of members that you have is an indication of the support of the community and an indication of people that are going to come to the co-op and shop. So it really is an important part of what makes a cooperative successful. Does that make sense? Any other questions about that? The other thing with the site part of after we go to this next phase, if we meet all our goals, one of the things that we do is we'll identify potential sites, and we will take, there's a thing called a pro forma. I don't know if somebody else wants. Basically what a pro forma is it puts all these details, I mean, everything, square footage, how much money you are borrowing, what the rate is. It's like a huge accounting thing. And you put in the details for that site, like square footage, what the rent will be, how much upfitting is necessary, and you can look and see if you can project that the cooperative grocery store, when it will be in the black. When does it go from in the red to in the black? Jan, is there a better way to describe this?
No, you're pretty much right on. There's a lot of different variables that go into it. However, one thing that we want to make sure we note is that there's a lot of professionals with a lot of industry knowledge that are helping us with this. And we have market studies, and we have people with 20 years in the industry that are helping us devise these pro formas to determine whether or not we are viable in the current market that we're in. So it's not just us doing all of this all on our own. We have a lot of people that are helping us and want us to succeed.
Yes, I don't think any of us were in the grocery store business. None of us. We all have education. Yeah, education, healthcare. Liz, we call her our industry private sector person. Everybody else, even though Josie, I know you're private sector, but it was like an environmental thing. Well, Jan's private sector too, I guess. So, but we come from various backgrounds. None of us were in the grocery store business. We were just passionate about this and started, true grassroots kind of effort.
And another thing that is a concept that's really important to being on the board of directors is servant leadership. So when you're on a board of directors, we're not doing this because we're going to make billions of dollars, right? We're doing this because we're passionate about what a cooperative, the community market cooperative, will do for our community, be it for nutrition, for the local economy, making sure that people are able to get healthy food with a budget that works for them. And so we're servant leaders, where we want to succeed and be leaders because that's what we're doing for our community, right? Just like the people that lead you to being better than you were before. So it's another concept that is an important part of serving on the board of directors.
You want to explain the other one about the one voice? We don't
Oh,
do
okay.
consensus. It's not a consensus vote. Go ahead.
So when we vote on things, it's not consensus. What it is we vote, and hopefully we have a clear majority. We don't have an even number. And when we do the vote on whatever thing is that we're voting, we never say, we present it as if all of us had voted for that particular thing, for that aspect and that standing of it. I'm not explaining myself well. So we always want the board to present as a unified front. It's not a grounds for trying to, like the House and the Senate or something. It's not something where we're keeping track of who voted how and that kind of thing. We discuss it, we talk about it, we vote and talk about the good and the bad. And then whenever we discuss it outside of the board of directors, we present it as if the entire board had that opinion. Any other questions? Eric, you missed some of the preamble. Do you have anything that you might have a question about, or?
Yeah, and apologies for my tardiness. I was sitting over on the Google Meet link. I guess I had an old one in my email.
Oh, I'm so
I was
sorry.
on that. That's okay. I'm glad I found you guys. I guess quickly. So my name's Eric Myers. I'm a resident in Fuquay. I've got two children, 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my wife. We've lived here about the last 6 or 7 years. And I'm not quite sure how I got on your mailing list, but I've been sort of tracking a little bit and am very passionate about food and being able to find good food and organic food that doesn't cost me $300 a week at the grocery store. And so, really interested in, we've tried delivery services and things, but I really want to, find a way to support more of a local initiative. So this sounds great. I guess two questions that I have are, if you could just sort of talk a little bit about your overall timeline for an eventual physical location, and then your time commitment that you're asking for from board members, just so I can understand that.
I'm going to start with the time commitment. We have meetings for an hour and a half once a month. We're a working board, so there are things that we do as board members, like for instance, Joy's the treasurer. So she maintains the books and all that kind of thing. Jan is our finance person. So she does all the taxes. She has that. I do outreach. So I'll go to the growers market once a month and sit and chat for 4 hours once a month. Josie's our secretary. She does the secretary, so she types up minutes, keeps us honest, is very active during the meetings. Tammy's our site coordinator, so she works with real estate agents and identifying new locations and such. So how much time does that take? Right now I would say it could take anywhere, in addition to that hour and a half meeting. I'm doing Facebook, so that outreach, I probably spend, I don't know, an hour a week on that kind of stuff. It's going to matter what the task is that you're doing outside of being on the board. Hopefully we'll have these 15 to 20 people on committees, and I would envision that a board member is going to have to liaise with the committees to make sure to report on what's going on and to make sure that they kind of are staying focused. So I could see that being maybe another, 1 to 2 hours a month. Does anybody?
I was going to say, Liz, it also depends on what's happening at the time, right? Because I remember times over the past 4 years where we had identified a site, and then I'm very active in updating the pro forma and ensuring that we are as up to date as possible on our financial projections. And so it could take, a couple of hours a week, but it really just depends on what's happening with the co-op at that time. If you're in a state like we are now where like maybe certain areas of the co-op are not as in depth, but it could come to a time where we're like coming to fruition with the site, and things could be much more heavy than they are now.
The other thing, Eric, that happens is we have once a year, we have a retreat where we do our planning for the year. We usually attend one or two trainings, such as up and coming, it's conferences or cooperative cafes, which are kind of like local brainstorming sessions with other co-ops. But again, it's not, I think what Jan is saying is that to say that normally it's a couple, 2 to 3 at the very most hours additional. Once we get to it and are doing the site and working on getting a general manager and all those kind of things, getting that general manager is really important. So the board will be identify and interview and try to get a general manager for the store once we have the store. Then the general manager does staffing and upfitting, that we might all be mattering on our talents. We might be helping with that also. So like Jan said, it matters where we're at. Now, as far as what do we think will be the timeline? When we started this, we thought we'd surely have a cooperative in 3 years. That was wrong. When a big grocery store goes in, a Harris Teeter or a Kroger's, when they announce their site and open their store, they've spent 10 to 15 years studying the economy and the viability of their store. So I would say, I would hope 3 to 5 years we would have the store open. Am I being overly optimistic, overly pessimistic, my other board members?
The projections on what it takes changes depending on your membership, and it changes since the pandemic. As Liz said, when we started this, they were saying 4 to 6 years. Then they moved to 6 to 8, like during, little post-recession. Well, during the pandemic, all those financial things changed. What first line lenders were willing to give and the percentages they wanted to see up front, all those things change as well. So now they're saying 10 years is reasonable. And there are co-ops opening during this pandemic who have been at it for 10 years, and they're exceeding all the expectations. So, the short answer is we really don't know. We used to have more of, it's like everything else pre-pandemic, you could estimate and do a lot better. And I'm in education and we're trying to figure out enrollment. I'm in higher ed and we're trying to figure out enrollment, and no one knows anything. We got all the data dashboards in the world. So it's a crazy time, but we do know those metrics we have to meet. No one's going to lend us money without 1,000 members. No one. And then we're going to have a capital campaign, and those things, there are timelines for each of those things, and we can set and be a part of those timelines, but we just really don't know yet.
Now, Eric, one other thing is we've done market studies, a number of market studies, which says, is our idea viable given the economy and population of where we're looking at for this? We just redid that again. We took our numbers. We got with Debbie Suasona, who is the main consultant for that out west. And she said, you guys still have the numbers. You still have the numbers. You have the population. It's a booming thing. So even though the cost of rent is going up because you're so successful. The number of people that are there is going up, which will help. So we're not basing this on information from 10 years ago. I think we got that word from her in the last, what was that, 6 months ago we talked with her? Yeah,
Less
or maybe
than that,
less than
like
that, yeah.
2 or 3 months at the most.
Because when we started this whole summer thing with these 2 goals, we wanted to make sure it made sense, right? Because if she said to us, yeah, you know what, you guys are insane, you need to stop. You just need to stop. She didn't say that. She said, no, it's still there. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, that was great. Thank you. And obviously, you know, my first question around time commitment, you know, obviously I'm, you know, not shying away from a time commitment. I just wanted to have an idea of kind of what, you know, be able to put it in a box and know kind of how big it is. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
One of the things too is, and is we always, you know, we're all human beings. It's not like we got paid, this is our paycheck job and I got to put in 40 hours a week. So everybody kind of does what they do best, right? So I'm really good at talking, but not always so good at figuring out how to do the Zoom meeting, right? But I could talk forever, you know, and I love going out to the farmer's market, but some people would rather just like work on the pro forma, which you could just poke my eyeballs out rather than ask me to do accounting work. So I think it works out well in how it balances out.
And you all currently have 8, is that 8 board members and you're looking for 4, so it's a 12-person board? Is that correct?
We currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board members.
Okay.
And then Josie and Jan used to be on the board, but they still assist because they have a subject matter expertise, and they're fine with doing that, which is a boon to us.
Okay.
We've had up to, what's the most? We've had 9 people. Have we ever had more than 9 people on the board? Yeah, we've had up to 9.
Okay.
And how the board goes is we try to make it so there's kind of a succession plan. So there's always 1/3 of the people are new, 1/3 of the people have been there for a moderate amount of time, and 1/3 have been there a longer time. And so that means that you always have someone that has a fresh perspective, and you always have the voice of experience. So that's the strategy for that.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to say something about, you mentioned the retreats and the conferences and those kind of things. I just wanted to say something about those because I've been to several of the conferences and the workshops, and they're so much fun. The last 2 years it's been virtual in the pandemic, but it's still been some really interesting speakers, and the conferences have been, you know, all over the country. We were lucky to have one in Durham 2 years ago, and it was just a lot of fun to get together with other people who were in the co-op world, you know, to brainstorm together, to hear how other co-ops were doing their annual meetings or doing their membership drive. And, you know, it was just 2 days of really interesting workshops, you know, picking your own speakers that you want to hear, that were interesting to you, meeting other startups. It really, really energizes the co-op and you know, just get you excited about what you're doing. And those are, and it's, you know, optional. Not all the board members end up going, but it's a lot of fun to go to those. And even the virtual ones have been really neat. There's been some great workshops. There's great videos on the website, the consultants that we work with to get more information about, you know, what a co-op is all about and how it's different from a standard grocery store, and what, you know, all of the help me out here, the 7
The 7 cooperative principles, such as cooperatives help other cooperatives. So that would be part of these conferences, right? Is co-ops want to share their stories with other co-ops. I'm on some committees that are online groups on Facebook with other people that are at the same spot as us, and we commiserate, but we also talk about our successes. so that we can benefit from that. So yeah, you're right. And I mean, there have been times when we've been in tears. Miss Josie and I have been in tears at how moving some of these presenters were. And you think it's just co-ops, it's just grocery stores, right? Well, there's a lot more to it, but most importantly, they're grocery stores. I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical, because the bottom line is that we have good food, local food for everybody, in a way that they can access it and afford it. So thanks, Josie. Any other comments or questions?
Are there any other local co-ops or models that you guys sort of look at, especially nearby?
Absolutely. So North Carolina has a lot of cooperatives. Closest to us is the Durham Co-op and Weaver Street. Durham Co-op, of course, is in Durham. Weaver Street has a co-op. They have one in Carborough, one in Hillsborough, and one in Chapel Hill at Southern Village. And so each of those co-ops, and Raleigh, I forget about the one in Raleigh. So each of those is distinct but the same, right? So Durham's pretty different than Hillsborough, I think, but they have a lot of things that are the same. So one of the things, we had an outreach meeting, and one of the things we talked about, and we've done it in the past, was to do a field trip to a co-op to see what we would look like. But you might want to look at I think the Durham co-op comes pretty close, because it's not in town. It's not in a city like in Raleigh. The Weaver Street in Raleigh is a great co-op, but I don't think it'll have the same flavor that our co-op is going to have. And I think Durham co-op is going to be more like that. Maybe Southern Village. Southern Village in Chapel Hill is a smaller co-op, a smaller footprint, pretty affluent economy around it, but not totally. But their footprint might be more like what ours is like. But they still have a deli, they still have grab and go, they still have coffee, they still have all the things that we love about cooperatives. They may only have 3 things, right? It's 3 types. So let's say you are buying a detergent, and there might be 2 or 3 detergents to select from. There won't be 15 types, but there may be a organic one and a natural one, right? And so whichever one works for you, but you have those options. And really importantly is things like beer and wine, things that are actually more expensive in the cooperative, because they're kind of almost specialty things. They end up, that premium ends up financing the basics to make sure that bulk food, canned goods, flour, all the things you would need to just run your household, they subsidize that by having a premium like on beer and wine. It's a model that works pretty tried and true in co-op. It probably works at other grocery stores, but if people are willing to spend $20 for a 4-pack of craft beer, and it means that I can go over here and be able to get, my kefir that's from a milk guy down the street, I'm all for it. So, any other questions, comments? Did I forget anything, fellow board members?
I think one thing that I read somewhere in either on your website or in other email was just this concept of community events as well.
Yes.
So whether that be music or things like that to kind of, build that sense of community around it and draw people in. I mean, is that something else that you all are looking at different models for and looking at doing?
So actually, that's something near and dear to my heart.
Mhm.
Is, could we have a community room? Let's say we had a community space that we could use for cooking classes, for, Tai Chi, for yoga, for, education. At Durham, they often do like voter registration. They do all kind of community things like that. They have, you can have presentations by chefs, or even at Weaver Street, they have bands. It kind of matters on what your logistics are for where you're at. When we surveyed everyone, we just recently put a survey out to see what our community wanted in their cooperative. Half the people were member owners and half of them were not. And the three things they focused on was local farmers, local products, and accessibility of food for all. So having outreach events was not top on their list. As the outreach coordinator, we've done things like free cycles. We've done like how to cook healthy food on, what was it, $3 a week or something? I don't know, what was it, $3 a day? What was that? I don't know.
It was a food stamp budget.
Right.
You
So,
can tell Liz doesn't cook.
I don't cook. I want grab and go. I want to be able to buy my food and not have to even worry about it. But so that is something that is an important part of co-ops. And again, something near and dear to my heart, because I think education, if you can educate people how to eat healthy, I know how it's changed my life to eat healthy. And I'd love to be able to share that with other people. But not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to go into the nuts and bolts of that, but it is something that co-ops often do, and I would hope that our co-op could do. And if you have music, you get people there, right? We've had annual meetings at the Fainting Goat. We always get more people if there's beer, so let's do it where there's beer, right? We've had self-defense classes, we did Qigong, so we've done a number of things. Anything else?
Thank you for that. That sounds great.
Sure. Thanks for talking, so I didn't sit there and wait.
Was Eric on when we put it in the chat? The link to the application is in the chat.
Okay. Oh yeah, I don't, I'm just looking. I don't see it. If you guys could drop it again, I'll
Josie's going to do that for us.
Yep, I see it. Perfect.
So if you can go there, you can go into the Google Doc, and if you are interested in applying, fill out that application, send it in. If you have any questions about it, you can feel free to email me. And what's my email is what is my email?
communitymarket.coop.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when you go to the website and you say contact us, then thank you, Josie. She's such a good secretary. I'm so glad she's there. And so if you have any questions, just email me and I'll answer your questions, give you a call, give you an email back. So.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yep.
And I spent, like I said, we moved down to North Carolina about 6 or 7 years ago. I grew up in Virginia, but then spent, just before we moved to North Carolina, I spent 3 years over in the Peace Corps in East Africa.
Wow.
So obviously got very familiar with, markets and very fresh food and, just that whole community aspect of it. So it was certainly one of the things coming back that I missed, was difficult to find. So this sounds like it was exactly what I was expecting. So that's great.
Good. Right. Good. Excellent. Okay. For me, it's about convenience, right? If I can go all year round and get the food that they have at the growers market, that makes me happy. If I can support local producers, local farmers, and not have to cook, boy, my life is just perfect. So, all right. Anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it. And anyone that may watch this after the fact, I appreciate that. Feel free to contact us through the website or on Facebook. I post there pretty often. And I would appreciate any input and questions that you may have. Hopefully we meet our 2 goals. That is, at least 4 people apply to join the board of directors and 15 to 20 people sign up to be on committees to support what the board of directors is trying to do. So with that, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Liz.
Bye. Thanks, guys.